This winter, there were bountiful snows in the San Juan Mountains to melt in the May sunshine, and the Dolores River flows wide and fast. Why did the Spaniards name the river Dolores, River of Sorrows? It's strong as it flows to join the Colorado River in Utah. It nourishes pine forests at the foot of sloping mesas speckled with juniper. It glides through arid valleys with the salt of ancient seas just below the surface. The rapid is called Snaggletooth. It's treacherous and a perfect example of why rafting is nosing its way to the top of the list of personal adventure sports in Colorado.
Well, Snaggletooth Rapid for river runners, probably one of the most fearsome or the most fearsome rapid on the Dolores. And I see old archival footage when things were free-flowing. And I can't imagine Snaggletooth at high water level. I just wonder if the canyon's waiting for its runoff. And it's not coming this year. Boating season here in Colorado. Springtime, snow's melting, means the river's coming up, means time to go boating. Yeah, but we're going to see a river corridor that typically would be teeming with life, and it's pretty dry. The Dolores, because it is dammed up right here at McPhee Reservoir, has to depend upon release. So you can't run it every year.
Our mission for this trip was to see for ourselves what the Dolores looks like on these years without water. We would begin at McPhee Reservoir and end where the Dolores flows into the Colorado River, a journey of 184 miles.
Seven CFS is we're gonna, well, we'll see if you can run it actually. We'll go and see what 7 CFS yields us. Here we are, sitting on beautiful Ponderosa Gorge about midway down. Absolutely gorgeous, and we have it all to ourselves. As you go downstream, it gets deeper and deeper and more rugged. And it's this hidden gem of sorts. It's got a lot of exploration and beauty to behold. There's no water in the river, we learned that today. I guess you could call it pool walk, not pool drop, because we would paddle for a pool, maybe 50 yards, and then get up and walk to the next pool. Here late in the day, we got to a section where the pools are further and further apart. So it's just been put the pack raft on the back and walk. So tomorrow, we're gonna get up and continue the pool walk. And then beyond that, we'll keep on moving down. And hopefully at some point, some tributaries will start bringing in some water, and we're gonna be able to start actually paddle longer than 50 yards at a time. My first river booty of walking here. Nice Carlisle bladed oar. Well, the Dolores really gets its origin in our backyard, right here, you know, here in the San Juan Mountains. I arguably have the best job in the country, the best position in the country for working with young adults, primarily college students, providing opportunities for them to get outside. My first connection or exposure to the Dolores was like, whoa, this is great. How come I haven't really heard about this river as one of the great Western rivers? Use of water from the Dolores it's very complicated to understand. That river is being pushed to its brink. It's changed from that first experience to where it is now. Humans have inhabited this area for a long time. Even thousands of years ago, people were utilizing the river, utilizing this canyon, living in it. I look at these walls and I see the handprints. Someone, you know, going about their lives living in this canyon, put that there, and here I am standing and have a lot of gratitude and feel fortunate to be able to be here. So we've made it to probably one of the most fearsome, or the most fearsome rapid on the Dolores, the Snaggletooth. Yeah, when we got to Snaggletooth, it was essentially dry. It was a lonely spot in some ways because there isn't that energy or vibrancy that gets created by having water flowing down through it. So I stood in the middle of it and thought about what it would be like to run it. Thought about water coming downstream.
We experienced some things that maybe you may not be able to anymore. You know, we as a young outfitting company, pretty much we're all in our 20s. The Dolores has so much personality. It's very cold, wet, just the serenity of being there. A place as beautiful as the Dolores and as wild and as scenic. That's what we thought a wild and scenic river was.
The Dolores River was the first river in Colorado to be studied for inclusion in the National Wild and Scenic Rivers System. Dennis was a young river guide hired by the government to take the Wild and Scenic Study team on an accelerated trip down the Dolores River.
In 1975, the Wild and Scenic River Study, that would become the first time that we would run snaggletooth. Various government agencies got together and decided that there would be 2 segments of the Dolores that would be studied on river. You can't study 130 miles of river in 5 days. We, I think, as young, naive boatmen, didn't know that the outcome was probably already predetermined. If a dam went into place, boating days would be grouped together, thinking that it would be compared with other dams where the release is throughout the summer. What we had no idea of, that water would not go back into the river. It would be held, taken out, and the river would become what we've seen, possibly a dry riverbed.
As you can tell, there's no way for me to paddle through here. It's been boulder choked. There's been a couple pools, but to be honest, today has been walking on my own feet. I've put the pack raft away, rolled it up, put the paddle away, I've got the trekking pole out, and we're just walking down the river corridor. The one kind of bonus is that I've had solitude. It's felt like a wilderness experience. In this day and age, I always think I'm out there and next thing I know, I go around a bend and there's someone else. It looks like I can actually start to paddle some pools.
Excitement is building for the twisting canyons ahead, where I'll be joined by my teammate Annie and have some much-needed company for the rest of the trip.
Whoa. Breeze is helping. Gonna go boating, baby.
Whoopsie. Trying to patch my boat, it fell off the back of the truck on the drive over and got about a 3/4 of an inch long gash in it. So we'll see if I can make it hold air. Hopefully it will.
Annie, my teammate on this adventure, walking down a dry riverbed, it takes a certain type of personality and mentality, and Annie embraced the whole experience.
Brett is one of the best people I can think of to do like a weird adventure with. I was packing for a river trip, and then in my mind realized I actually have to pack for a backpacking trip instead.
This is a pool. I can paddle this.
The Dolores feels like a backyard run, like it's easy to go after work and get on the river, but it's also always been a little mysterious because below the dam, it's really rare that you get to see that canyon and boat those waters. I've worked here at Alpaca Raft for about 1.5 years now. My role is sorting all the boats, so they get cut, they get the attachments put on. What brought me here is the public land and the access to the desert and the mountains.
I got it.
Thanks. Woo! Hey, there's enough water to do this.
Heck yeah.
Yeah.
Here we go.
Waking up this morning, it was really beautiful and peaceful, waking up to birds and the trickle of the river. The Dolores River below the dam, when people get to run it, they're so excited. It's kind of a frenzy of everyone like, get on the river now because it might not happen again for, multiple years. I can appreciate having the very low river because no one's here, and that is the beauty of it. The animals are really here and you don't really see any traces of human right now. And then also the other part of that is that no one can really come down here and appreciate it and enjoy it. I was pretty excited to get to go on the dam tour. Getting to see a dam up close and just get to ask whatever question I felt like asking to the dam operator, that was a really special experience.
We're at McPhee Dam on the Dolores project. McPhee Dam is a zoned earth embankment dam, so it has a clay core and then more permeable materials that kind of buttress it up and support that clay core and give it the strength it needs to resist the hydrostatic forces behind it. Construction began on the dam in the 80s, the dam and Great Cut Dike and Dolores Tunnel, and then continued about 10 years. There's around 170 miles of canals and piped laterals. The project irrigates around 61,000 acres of farmland. Most of the water that comes down Dolores River is allocated from the reservoir for various project purposes for irrigation and municipal and industrial water. It's a unique project because it has trans-basin diversions from the Dolores River Basin to the San Juan River Basin. So the water that comes into McPhee Reservoir gets diverted from the reservoir to a different basin.
Water has been diverted by a private company from the Dolores River for irrigation since the late 1880s. The company built massive canals and ditches to bring water into the San Juan River Basin for agriculture. The beneficiaries of these projects have the first priority to water from the Dolores and are also its largest users. When the dam was built, additional water was made available for irrigation for the Ute Mountain Ute tribe and, in theory, the downstream environment. But in recent years, water shortages have become more frequent and extreme, impacting agricultural communities who receive water from the reservoir and what's left of the river below the dam. Those with newer water rights, primarily the Ute Mountain Ute tribe, irrigators, and the downstream environment, are increasingly receiving far less than their promised allotment of water, showing the impacts of climate change on this high desert river.
The challenges faced by McPhee water managers are mainly decreasing water supplies. We feel the effects of climate change right here at the Dolores project.
Preparing for our trip was pretty difficult to go into that, not knowing if I was going to be walking or boating. Usually on a river trip, I can sit and really enjoy where I'm at. Really become immersed in the surroundings. And yesterday was very different than any other river trip I've ever been on. It was mostly getting from point A to point B. So a lot of that involved walking and kind of pushing the boat through the rocky areas or dragging it. We might get some big pools that will be nice to float through, and we might be walking the whole time. But I anticipate a very long and very demanding day again. Yesterday, we ran into some long pools, which was great. But then at the end of the day, we had a lot of walking, a lot of getting in and out of our boat, and that was tiring. Today we have a really big day. We have maybe 8 miles or so of paddling. Hopefully it's paddling, not as much walking. Pretty interesting seeing the difference between the canyon and how wild and how epic it is, and the river, which is so muted. It doesn't seem natural, it doesn't seem normal. That would have all dumped on me. Thank you. Thanks. Over here. Yeah, walking on the river bottom has been quite difficult.
I'd say it's 30 plus hard-earned miles at this water flow. But we had it to ourselves, and we had to pick of any camp we wanted.
We just went our 10 miles from this morning. We are packing up our boats so that we can carry them 5 miles on this old pack trail back to Bedrock Boat Ramp. Personally, I'm stoked to hike.
Heck yeah.
Yeah, we did it. The effort we put in to get to those camps and to like spend multiple nights on the river, no one else would do that. Seeing the river like that, really any river that's hurting that much, it's just like, yeah, that's not okay. We were seeing tracks of bear and bighorn sheep, but what we didn't see fish, we didn't see like water insects, we weren't seeing waterfowl. What I would love to see would be a river that gets enough water to have fish.
Round hill, 120.
I actually started working on the Dolores River when I was a temporary back in 1989. I was charged with river otter introduction, and we also did field surveys.
Okay, cool. All right, let's do it. So ready, break.
We've learned a lot about the aquatic environment in the Dolores River. Some of the more exciting things we've learned really just in the last 10 years have been about fish movement.
These fish come all the way out of the Colorado River. In one particular instance, one fish came out of the Green River, swam all the way through Moab, up the Dolores, all the way past Disappointment Creek, and then went back to the Colorado, and then came back in just a few years. It's not an individual, it travels typically with a school of other fish, and we see that when we're electrofishing down there. We see these pods, these schools of spawning flannelmouths. These warm water native fish need connected habitats. The idea that these fish just sort of sit in one spot is really not true at all. They're moving. When these dry years come along, really the base flow is just keep the channel wet. I'd be lying if I said emotion doesn't enter in a workplace as beautiful as the Dolores River. And so emotionally, you sometimes come home at the end of the day and you're like, am I just documenting the demise of a population of fish I really like?
At times, we as humans view nature as this resource for us to pull from, and whatever means that is, extract from it, however that is. And at some point, I think we're all starting to see, and I saw it firsthand, what that impact is. When we started this whole thing, there was 1,500 CFS going into McPhee. And then the day we started the dam, we had 7.5 CFS. And we went down through Ponderosa knowing how absurd it probably is going to be. And now here we are, we're gonna walk into, or get down here to the confluence, and we're gonna have a tributary.
The whole time we're on the Dolores, we know eventually that you reach the San Miguel, which is a tributary of the Dolores, and it doesn't have any dams, so it's naturally flowing.
I'm gonna take this pack off and get my gear inside and get ready to actually paddle some whitewater.
I kind of forget what it feels like paddling in current feels like. We've just been scooching along the rocks for so long.
Where there's water, there's life, they say. We're at the freaking confluence.
Once we hit the confluence with the San Miguel, we began to see the uranium tailing piles and the mines along the river.
There's a lot of mine tailing piles, signs of uranium mining along the lower Dolores.
In 1923, we see Union Carbide come in to start a new company, U.S. Vanadium, and they start their milling operation. From there on out, we start to see intensive use of the land and extraction of uranium oxide ore.
A ceaseless stream of trucks carries the precious ore to buying stations and more than a dozen processing mills. The mill at Uravan, Colorado, one of many, lies in the heart of one of the oldest and richest uranium mining sections on the plateau.
Union Carbide set up Uravan in 1935. This is a full-scale company town. They build 250 houses, they build a theater, they build a medical clinic, they build a church, they build a school for the family's kids. This is small town America. Until 1942, we're at war. And this triggers President Roosevelt to create the Manhattan Project. Manhattan engineer comes to Uravan and talks to the people in charge and says, we need the uranium, and that's what we need to focus on.
So in the 40s, when the Manhattan Project was getting off the ground, there was obviously an interest in getting fast, cheap uranium. After World War II, of course, it turned to the Cold War. Then is where the Dolores River became important. There was a bunch of buying programs. The government guaranteed prices and guaranteed purchases for people who mined and produced uranium into yellowcake. That legacy is all over the landscape. Any time you go and see like the Uravan site or any of the numerous uranium tail disposal sites. It was a boom, and it was really overblown. I mean, Russia had their propaganda, but we had ours.
Americans were obsessed with the frontier and with the West in the 1950s. And so we really get people just putting on, you know, cowboy shirts and overalls and grabbing their pick and their Geiger counter and going out and seeing if they can be the next gold rush, except this is a uranium rush.
That whole overlay of the peaceful atom, but also it still was that propaganda because the peaceful atom was very much a war industry. There has been no real financially, economically viable uranium industry since the 50s. You really dig down into who was mining out there, you're not going to find the folks who were left on the landscape. Those folks came and went. And the folks who stayed behind, I suppose they needed to have a better story to tell than, you know, we just stayed here.
Here we are in Gateway, Colorado, getting ready to set up and get rigged for our last wilderness section to the confluence.
Last night, we camped at the takeout put-in, and very buggy, really humid and muggy, hot, and there's a wedding going on pretty late across the river, so some contributing factors to not getting the best night's sleep. I'm excited to get back on the river and get away from town.
Yeah, find some solitude in the canyon, the next canyon section, and maybe a little whitewater.
It just feels so different actually being on water, a lot more fun. And we're about to do this rapid and head downstream through some wilderness stretch all the way until we hit the Colorado River.
See if we can finish this thing, get her done.
After doing all that walking, just getting to be on a giant river that's flowing fast felt so good.
Anybody who's spent any time in the outdoors where there's real wilderness has a chance to get in touch with nature in a way that many people, you know, never do. There's been a temptation by humans to try to control these resources, to, in a sense, dominate these resources. I think the Dolores River is known around the world for the incredible red rock canyons that are there. And it's really, really important for us to protect it.
Many of us believe that there's a need for long-term protection for the entire landscape. In the southern part, a proposal has emerged over the last decade for a national conservation area. One of the things that the National Conservation Area proposal does is it provides a level of certainty in the realm of long-term protection for this landscape. Having a mineral withdrawal, having motorized recreation on designated trails, like some of these basic things that into the future will have an impact on how this place is managed.
Altogether, it's 68,000 acres. And also ensuring people that existing uses would continue and uses that we didn't want, like mining or oil and gas, would be prohibited.
The work of land protection is never done. It's something that is very closely tied to Indigenous communities. Historically, the Ute people have been people of movement according to season. So when we think about protection of land and resources, we think about the broader landscape of where our people historically roamed. For me, it's just being able to have that time to be in the places that my ancestors or elders were. To me, access doesn't mean acquisition.
We just left our last camp. We crossed into Utah yesterday. This is the last day of our trip. We're about 2 miles from the confluence of the Dolores and the Colorado. Different emotions going on. I'm excited. I've been wearing this shirt for like a week, so I'm really excited to put a new shirt on. When you do a trip that you hit multiple confluences, it really shows firsthand just how everything's connected. Seeing it go from like a tight little canyon with all these turns and steep walls to this now pretty wide river. Seeing it in the state that we saw it was really eye-opening. It was just missing the life force, the main character in that canyon, the river. I think if everyone saw that, they would have a pretty strong opinion on it too.
This particular project's been kind of interesting in that we had some absurdity to it in some ways of walking down a dry riverbed. I didn't know what I was getting myself into by doing this, but I decided I'd just go for it. I would be vulnerable and go in with this beginner's mind, the ability to learn, and just go and see what would happen. Like anything that comes to an end, you want to savor it. The landscape and the cultural significant sites we've seen and experienced, and the beauty, the rawness. I've seen the rawness of the river, and the state that it's in places is what's disappointing to me. When there seems to be loss in anything, that there's a sense of loss for this river, the river of sorrows, when there's no water in it. There's still so much that it adds value to.
I mean, it's a big waterway in the Southwest here. Before doing this trip, I had only seen 20 or 30 miles of it at high water.
When it comes to protecting the Dolores, to addressing water governance, public lands issues, Native American affairs, we can't just reach from the shelf to find all the answers for the challenges we face.
We're kind of done with the wilderness, and it's a lot.
So one of the things I've dedicated professional life to is putting young people in landscapes like this. And in this case, I came out onto a river that I knew but didn't really quite understand, and listened and let it speak to me. What I found and what I heard was a river that followed its namesake. It's the river of sorrows. Through time, that's what's happened.
Laws and policies are human institutions that are meant to reflect the hopes, the dreams, the aspirations, the character of the people that are governed by them. Culture. Culture is the soil out of which laws and policies addressing water, public lands, indigenous peoples in the American West grow. If that's true, then we have every reason to engage with one another as part of a common culture, an interconnected community dedicated to protecting the places that give us sustenance and inspire our soul. As our culture evolves as a society and starts to increasingly value human and environmental equity, we must balance everyone's needs in order to sustain as a full-fledged community. In an era with less water, it makes these conversations more challenging, but we have learned by visiting this place that we have every incentive to work toward the goal together. Together, there's an opportunity to move into a new arena of possibility, one inspired by a river once known only for sorrow.